Everybody, welcome. This class is called Path of Light. This is lesson number 4 in the 4-week series. This is the culmination. I spent extensive time going over all of my notes and really organizing my thoughts. So it's all, like I say, Jenga towered in there in my mind to be able to share it with you. I'm going to do a really nice job today of wrapping everything up so that it makes sense to you of all the different things that I've been presenting. All right. So first of all, I'm just going to reiterate and reemphasize that when I talk about light here, I'm talking about something more than just the optical illumination phenomenon. I'm talking about the intelligence or sentience or information or organized data that is involved in light. And so when we talk about light from that position or context, light can be something that is not necessarily shiny or brilliant as we're used to that from the five senses realm. Light can be something that is anything that can contain information can contain light. Sorry, my brain got so excited there. It did not effectively connect to my mouth. So I'll say it again. And please mute yourself. Anything that can contain information can contain light. So how about like a book? A book contains information. How about like a knotted string? Knotted strings can contain information. In fact, this is one of the ancient ways of being able to transmit information, not in a pre-literate society, but in a society that has different symbols than what you're presently used to. So I'm asking you to kind of like expand your muscles today. Right now, we're doing like a nice stretching exercise to be able to expand your definition of what light is. Like for one example, I am bringing light to you here in this class. How? Like, of course, light is bouncing off of the surface of my skin and definitely being transmitted to you through a video, telecommunications device, right? Yes. But and also, light is actually coming out of my mouth. Light is coming out of my mouth in the form of organized phonemes, sound symbols that transmit concepts to you. So light is cognitive awareness. Light is consciousness. And so we look at the sun and the sky and we recognize this is a big giant ball of consciousness. And the photons and the journey of the photon is a journey of awareness. And what it is doing is making small warpages in the fabric of space-time that also contain light and information. Patterning is another way to think of light. Light is involved in patterning. So last week, I gave you my beautiful teaching all about photosynthesis, which is really also on a more abstract level, just about molecular bonding, how atoms as basic building blocks of matter come together to create chemical processes that are what are sustaining life here in our biological sense, and also the creation of more complex molecular chains. So for any level of complexity, for not any level, for greater levels of complexity to enter the system, light enters the system. To reiterate from last week's class, in the process of photosynthesis, you have to have carbon dioxide and water and light to make this process of translating light, that is pure energy, into matter, that is glucose, that is something that we can utilize and that can be life-sustaining for us here. There is this balance or oscillation from light or ephemera that has no weight and no mass into matter, which is substantive, which has mass. And of course, I realized as I was going over my notes today, and I wanted to emphasize a great deal of what I'm talking about is in this class, the end result, the viewpoint end result. Start from the beginning. A lot of what I'm talking about in this class is the viewpoint end result of what happens when you fly in rainbow lasagna. Because within your own body form, what you are doing or will be doing is combining together the seemingly dualistic opposites of light or ephemera versus matter or substance into a new complementary combination type of substance that is this spiritual matter or S matter, this stuff that is not dead and inert, but is very based in consciousness and responds to your consciousness. So what I'm teaching you with this class is the exercise regimen. You think about this, then you think about this, and you think about this, like I'm taking you on a journey that brings you over here to this level of capacitation where you can be more empowered. And so what I'm able to give you in this level of teaching is not the disconnected manifestation of matter, like something out of nothing. And I don't want to tell you that that is not possible. I would say that is possible. Spontaneous generation does happen, and it does happen at the level of divinity. But let's say that's like lifting 5,000 pounds, 5,000 pounds up over your head. Like, don't do that yet, okay? Let's work on lifting 500 pounds, which is still a lot to lift. And that is how to rearrange matter that is currently in existence with your mind. All right. So I'm giving you the teachings and the integument of light necessary to bring your mind and your ability level in the direction of being able to not randomly or sporadically manifest matter out of nothing, but instead to rearrange the constituent elements of reality into new forms of matter. The best analogy that I have is cake. Like, you're not making cake out of nothing. I'm going to teach you how to make cake. But what do you need in order to do that? You need to get flour. You need ingredients, sugar, eggs. You might also need equipment like a mixer and an oven. So in order to make stuff, you need stuff. The stuff that we presently have in reality is made out of stuff. And that's what we looked at, the mechanics of that in class last week. Comprehending photosynthesis. I'm going to hydrate because we're on a marathon here. Let's do it. Okay. What's the recipe for photosynthesis cake? Carbon dioxide and water and sunlight. What else do you need, class? Because if I just had those three things sitting around, would I have matter? The answer is no, Aurora. You need to have a plant. You need to have some form of a chloroplast, an actual living, alive translator. And without that translator, more light would not enter the system. This is important stuff, but that's not the only way that light could enter the system. Light can enter the system through this warpage of the fabric of space-time when I talk about other ways that chemical processes happen. For example, when you do combustion, and you light a match and you turn methane into light, a whole lot of light and energy, plus some water and some carbon dioxide. When you do that, you are liberating the light that is there, and you are bringing more light into the system. But I will tell you that the mechanics of the living plant, even though I'm saying mechanics like it's a machine, but the cascade of behaviors that happen within the complexities of the biological form of a plant are hugely necessary in order to bring light into the biological system. And I also wanted to go over when we're talking, because I would like for you to have a whole new comprehension of what matter is. Like, you're beginning with the matter of your own body, then I will encourage you to master the matter of your own body, then to expand your conception of what is possible in reality by mastering matter that is considered to be, quote unquote, outside of your body. And that will include the mastery of the concept of singularity and an expansion of your identification and your identity. But I would say, begin with the boundaries of your own body in terms of learning how to, with your own light of consciousness, transform those little tiny warpages at the level of the fabric of space-time, like at the molecular level, to be able to create these processes that either bond or unbond molecules. And so when you think about that, when you're like, oh, I got to do this within my own body, and I got to learn how to master that. Plants are masters. There are masters. And in many ways, they're like these humble or very modest, because I don't necessarily like that word humble, because it's used in like a boxing context or whatever, like he was humbled by his opponent, but more in the sense of like modest, like not self-assuming, not really shouting out about yourself that much. Plants are totally like that. They're just there being like, doing some miracles today, just miracleizing, just doing what is completely unfathomably complex, and just take it as a matter of course. And everyone's just, walking on top of me while I do it. So let's recontextualize and appreciate plants for the mastery that they are evidencing to us. Let's also give them credit that they're not like some stupid whatever type of thing, that they're like really smart. Maybe they are really, really smart. And maybe the processes that they embody and the things that they are doing are levels of mastery that we would like to be able to attain, and that we can learn from or be inspired from plants and how they are able to do this. So what are plants doing? Plants are in a partnership with light, which is this abstraction of consciousness. And what they are doing is within their own bodies, learning how to transform the fabric of space-time. Remember last week I taught you about the comfy chairs? The molecules jump together and smoosh together in sinking deep inside of their comfy chairs. And then sometimes they have to jump out of their comfy chairs, and that's the breaking of molecular bonds. But then they jump into even deeper futon sofas in order to clump together and create these beautiful molecular structures. That whole process, jumping out of their chairs, teetering on the edge of vortices, and then jumping into even deeper vortices, that is part of a dance. And it is totally non-random. In fact, everything that I'm trying to get across to you in this class is the profound non-randomness of everything that light is doing. Not only is the photon, or a photon in general, intelligent and very focused in what it's doing, it doesn't come here to say like, I think I'll just go to Earth and be a part of a leaf. Any leaf will do. I think it has a very, very specific plan. I think that it has a very, very specific directive or motivation or goal, and that it's in partnership with the organism that we know as the plant, the tree, the leaf, and that the light and the plant are in a conversation, are in relationship, are both learning and intentional in what they're doing. None of this is accidental or unintentional in some way. So that's another big thing to comprehend. The sun and the stars are balls of consciousness. As emitters of light, they are also emitters of time. And I'm going to talk to you about what the photon is. In fact, let me read this from my notes. I have it emphasized at the end over here so that I will remember it. Pardon my squinty faces. The photon is a time event spread out across space. All right. The translation of this is that light experiences time very, very differently than you in your animalistic presence, your cognitive mind, and your linear expression and linear experience of time. All right. You experience things as first, second, third, linear, breakfast, lunch, dinner, go throughout the day. All these time cycles, like the beginning, the middle, the end. And that's appropriate for the level of experience that you're in, but that's not the only viewpoint of the story. The photon is a time event that is spread out across space, meaning it's an all at once. It's not a first, second, third, it's an all at once. Now I'm going to keep reading from my notes. When I send out my notes to you, I'm sending out light to you in the form of very, very non-grammatical scribble scrabbles on computer email. The entire waveform pathway, that is the journey of the photon, should be defined as the photon. Both the packet, the individualized photon, and the entire implied trajectory or narrative backstory into its identity and definition. Let's draw that for you, because when I say something like that, I think it might be less accessible to you than when I draw it out for you. Because I am telepathic, and I do know a little bit about how your minds work so that I can help to educate people. Let's choose, I hope that you can see this color on your screen, because Like this will make it very giant too, so that you can really see it. All right, so this, that here will make a giant yellow dot. That represents one photon. I don't know if you can see this color. Try this color instead. This is one photon. I think that's a little bit brighter. But the photon is really a packet of energy or a portion, a slice of the waveform cake. So here's the whole entire waveform cake that you can imagine this going all around everywhere. And it's a tapestry. So, you know, tapestry has like interwoven threads. So I'm trying to draw it because now it looks kind of like a yellow spider, but that's not what I want it to look like. But it's hard. It's hard to make this look the way it looks. Okay. This is not a yellow spider. It's actually the waveform tapestry of time. And the photon represents one slice or portion of that. All right. So in order to please our linear mind, here I'll get a different color. We are used to using this as a convention, like saying like, we're going to cut a part of this out from the whole. And we're going to be able to talk about the behavior of the part of this. But really, you guys are super intelligent. There is not a way to distinguish or take a part of this away from the whole. It is so integrated and so much a part of everything that you can't really do that. Like, let's draw the sun over here. Like, here's a sun in the sky back here. And that's where here's the trajectory. I'll just draw it in red. This is the linear path. We envision, oh, it came from here and moved over to here. But really, this whole entire thing is what photon is. There is not a way to separate this moment when you encounter photon or when you ingest it or when you perceive it from all of the implied backstory of what brought it to you in this moment. All of that implied backstory is really what we're talking about when we are doing this new model. And to reiterate and to refresh for you, the new model is showing the sun or the star or the emanator like this. Oops. Here's purple singularity dot at the center. And then here's photon that stays home at singularity. And then this is the story. The story is this, of course, simplified line that I'm drawing like that. That's the fabric of space-time. And that fabric of space-time is really a series of very, very, very tiny little divots. Like I drew for you last week, sorry. These are comfy chairs. I've been drawing it like, you know, one smooth loop. It looks like a mouse's ear or something like that, but it's got little warpages and dimples and places in there. There's gravity wells. It's got gravity wells in there, and those gravity wells are created by the story of light. So the sun star, when I teach you about this, I teach you about how it has singularity at the center, right? And the singularity is really the infinite stretching of the fabric of space-time. First of all, you have singularity inside of you, and this is also something to master, so that way you can master matter everywhere, not just what's inside of you. Singularity is inside of you, and it's really at the center of each of the sun stars and each atom, but not at the center of every molecule. So this is the infinite stretching of space-time. But there is partial stretching. And if I were to draw the cross-section like I did last week, these are these cross-sections, the comfy chairs, that the molecules get into. And I'll just use the same colors just to be, you know, easy. But these are little atoms down here, and the atoms smooshed together in the comfy chairs that are these molecular gravity wells. Tiny, they're not stretched infinitely. They're just stretched a little bit. So look, what I'm trying to say to you is that we are going from a place where it is infinitely stretched, the sun, big, giant, massive plasma, tons and tons and tons of light, to this fabric of space-time over here, which we're gonna zoom in on, and that's this. It is not stretched all the way. It's just stretched a little bit. If it was the infinite stretching, if each one of these little comfy chairs was an infinitely stretched, vortex going down for forever, it means that those molecules would have been bonded for forever. They would have been married. Marriage. Okay, now I'm getting very silly. But yes, they would have been married to one another for forever. Well, what do we think about that? What do we think about that? Should they get married for forever? First of all, forever is a long time. And second of all, the answer is no, because what that would do would lead to a stasis in what is known as the game of life. That I'll go back to my face and then we will return to this whiteboard and I'll gesture more. But in order to have biological life, like what we are inhabiting in our cells right now, we need oxygen. Oxygen is O2. Here's one oxygen atom. Here's another oxygen atom. They come together and they smoosh together in the comfy chair and they are bonded in a nice little gravity well, and that's oxygen. If they were always bonded together, couldn't actually do anything with them. They would always be smooching and snuggling each other. They would not be able to be unbonded and then to perform a chemical reaction with other molecules. That is essential. That might be something called oxidation or cellular respiration or combustion, which are basically ways of releasing energy from matter or ways of releasing light from its storage container that is known as matter. If everything got bonded together permanently and then it was married for forever and fell into the deepest gravity holes possibly to fall into infinitely, going in there together like, wee, and down they go, then basically you'd be out of pieces, like game pieces. You'd be out of combinations. I'm very, very silly in what I'm saying, so please forgive me. But yeah, you would be out of you would no longer be able to perform the complexity of dance maneuvers that is required to support life through the non-randomness of repartnering of atoms. These atoms that are bonded as oxygen, for example, split apart non-randomly, and then they go and they find the next atom that they need to bond with very intentionally. Light tells them where to go. Light unbonds them by changing that little divot so that way they jump out of their comfy chair. And then light says, now you go over here and you go over here. And now you're going to fly off as a gas. And now maybe you're going to become part of a water molecule through bonding with hydrogen. Let me just drink some water as I'm reminding myself to stay hydrated here. Or maybe one of those oxygen molecules, when we unbond one of these atoms, is going to become part of glucose. And then it will become a part of your body. In order for that to happen, light gives the atom its directive, and the atom must be free to move. So now we're getting into my teaching about the states of matter. And I already gave you this teaching, and I'll kind of reiterate and give it to you a little bit more because I didn't emphasize enough. In my graph, my very non-official spreadsheet of the stages of matter going across your screen, from the Bose-Einstein condensate of superdensity to solid, to liquid, to gas, to plasma, all the way up to beam, which is the most ephemeral thing that we can experience. What I didn't emphasize enough is that in each of these successive stages of matter, we're not just talking about density. We're not just talking about something that was crunched together, like the Bose-Einstein condensate, ultimate crunch, squash. Solid matter is pretty squashed together. It's like I said, people stuck together in a subway car, no room to move. Versus a liquid, a little bit more room to move, versus a gas. Look at how far apart these molecules are, plenty of room to move, versus a plasma, where not only do the molecules begin to move, but also you have liberated electrons. Remember, like my joke about girls, liberated electrons, like I'll date whomever I want, I'm not married to you, right? And then a beam being the least dense least matter of all of the things on that graph. Accurate in terms of density. We are working with how smooshed together the molecules are, but more importantly, we are working with levels of freedom, levels of freedom, levels of freedom. How much stuff can the molecules do? When they are stuck together in the subway, they can't do a lot of stuff. They don't have a lot of freedom. They don't have a lot of opportunity for self-expression or to express this pattern that is known as intelligence, that is known as light. In order to express intelligence, there must be freedom. And the warmer the matter is, the hotter it is, the more freedom there is, the more molecular freedom there is for the molecules or atoms to actually express this pattern of intelligence. So when I talk about molecular freedom, that borderline of going from a gas to a plasma is huge. Because a gas, that would be like a steam. You know, it's very, very hot. Certainly wouldn't want to touch it. It's very, very hot. But it's not the same as a plasma, which is not only hot, but is electrified in a type of way. When you add so much energy to a gas that it gets superheated, and I went back in my notes and I looked it up, it would be 10,000 degrees Celsius to turn water vapor steam into a plasma. That's incredibly, incredibly hot, but it can happen, of course, under extreme circumstances, probably not in your tea kettle. I'm pointing to my kitchen in the morning, hopefully not. But you'd be like, this is definitely overboiled. Like, let this kettle stop for a few minutes before we actually make tea out of it. You know, to have like this nuclear tea. No, silliness helps though. It helps your brain to kind of relax and be more receptive to this. Plasma is superheated gas that is heated so much that the electrons kind of float away from their partner of the atom that they're a part of. It is the beginning of a demolecularization process on the atomic level of matter. And that's the level of a plasma. So when you see a star in the sky and it's a giant ball of plasma, or if you see a tiny candle flame or a flame, whatever, in your fireplace, or when you make a campfire or something like that, those are plasmas. And the plasma, the flame of the fire itself, has more freedom as a state of matter than simply a superheated gas. Because the electrons themselves, if this is an atom where you have the nucleus and then you have an electron shell, the electron shell becomes no longer stuck to, that's not the right way of saying it. Let us redefine it like this. The electron shell is not an orbit of the electron, it is a probability field. And that's like a time event where you can say, like, if you don't know exactly where I am, but you know where I live and what my address is, you're like, Aurora's in her house, but we don't know exactly what she's doing in her house. She might be walking on a treadmill. She might be making a cup of tea in the kitchen. She might be petting her dog or whatever, having a bath or something like that. But you know that I'm roughly within the square footage of my house. That's what the electron shell is. It is the house of the electron. But if you superheat and add a ton of heat and freedom information energy to the atom itself, the electron gets more freedom. And then it doesn't have to always be home. In terms of probability, all of a sudden, it can go to somebody else's house. And that's what these free electrons do. These free liberated electrons are like, oh, I'm not always staying home, you know. I have a life. I'm going out. I'm going somewhere. Yeah, they go out. And that's basically counting electricity. So I have a whole teaching. I didn't emphasize it that much in this semester. Thank you for letting me hydrate here. That is all about primary light and then secondary or outgrowths of primary light. And basically that involves electricity. Because when we talk about primary light, that's going to be where does light, mommy, daddy, where does light come from? Well, it comes from the sun, the stars, and the sky. And these both generate and emit light. But how about my light bulb? Does light live within my light bulb? Light does not live within the light bulb. And light does not live within the wood or the beeswax campfire. So now we have to make a distinction between combustion versus incandescence or fluorescence. Combustion is the way that humanity received light in dark times, even without any kind of electricity. Like all that was really comprehensible to humans was combustion. Something that you're gonna burn, add oxygen to, add oxygen, combust. So that could be like a torch or a candle or some oil that you're gonna burn, something like that. But there had to be a fuel source. And our electric lights that we have now are very different. There's not a fuel source. So when you have an incandescent light bulb, the filament doesn't burn, but it does glow. And when you have a fluorescent light, it doesn't burn at all. It doesn't emit any heat, but it does fluoresce. And then you have LEDs, which are the closest thing to really a quantum event in terms of the scale and the level of technology that humans are using. The key points are that the more modern and more artificial lighting, the non-incandescent lightings, so that would be like the fluorescent and the LED type of lights that we currently have in our environment, those have very little heat intelligence. They do not emit a full spectrum of all of the types of radiation of light that the sun stars emit in the sky. So the sun actually emits optical light. Of course, we see it if you're sighted with our eyes, but it also emits 45% of its energy in the form of infrared. That's what you feel on your skin in the form of warmth. So when you go outside, even if you have your eyes closed or even if you are blindfolded, you can definitely tell the difference between standing in the shade under a tree and going in the middle of a field and feeling what the sun feels like. Like one feels hot on your skin, one feels cool on your skin. That's infrared. Infrared. And infrared is incredibly important in terms of human health, mitochondrial function in your body, circadian health. There are very, very many reasons why you need to have lots of infrared in your environment. And this is path of light. So we talk about pristine systems, but you're not in a pristine system. Sorry, we have a bug in here. It's definitely not a pristine system inside of my house right now. Not a pristine system. And so please know you should be receiving a lot more infrared light from the natural sun in the sky, but atmospheric distortions, technology, and other nonsense crapolas that we usually don't talk about here are definitely inhibiting that. So I do a lot with infrared supplementation, using one of those red chicken lights. This is why I do that. But yeah, if a perfect world without any of these distortions or anti-life, anti-health aberrations going on, yeah, you receive an enormous, beautiful amount of infrared from the sun in the sky. You receive infrared also from forest bathing, and there's a Japanese word for it. I will not try to pronounce and mismangle the Japanese language for you, but they have a word for forest bathing, which is walking slowly underneath sun-dappled light as it comes through the trees. And that is incredibly important because it's not just the dapple of the wavery quality of, the beautiful shade of the light filtering through the leaves. It's also the green that is reflected. Anytime you can, you should surround yourself with that greenery because that greenery also involves infrared light. And there are certain places, like Sedona, Arizona is a very special place because during the day, it's red rocks, basically. Red rocks in the landscape. And they're also pinkish, orangish. They have a very particular, beautiful color to them. And at the end of the day, the sun goes down and you're not receiving optical light from the sun, but for about like 45 minutes or an hour after the sun is going down, you receive this beautiful infrared bath and you can really feel it. It feels so good. It feels like a glow, but it is not something that you see with your eyes, but it's deeply penetrative. And basically it is healing and nourishing for your light body, for your physical cellular structure. And there are not that many places where you can receive it that easily from the landscape, but you can tell it's a foundation of human health. Infrared light is a foundation of human health. Okay, I'm not going to get taught that much more about that, but that's an important thing for you guys all to internalize and to make a part of your life. Yeah, because you're eating light. And I'm jumping all around. Basically, what I'm giving to you right now, my presentation is condensation of whiteboards like 6, 7, and 8, but also reviewing a little bit on the stuff of photosynthesis. Wait, let me just drink a little bit of this. So matter, when it gets heat, gets more freedom. Like when I was telling you that if you're stuck in a subway and you're squished in there like sardines with everyone else, there's not very much free movement that you can do. But what if you're outside in like a giant, beautiful open field? Then you can do all sorts of things. You can run all around, you can run fast, you can run slow, you can run and smash into other people, you can become dance partners with other people, you can uncouple with other people, and then you can run around and find new people to become dance partners with. That is what it is to get at the level of a gas, a superheated plasma, and then, of course, becoming a beam. And so the superheated plasma is like the origin of the superorganized form of light known as the beam. But the beam, as I've told you, is a convention, a story that our mind accepts of causality. How did the light get to you? So you're actually the end result of an enormous amount of light that has amalgamated into or condensed and focused into this present moment of who you are now. But time does not experience light, light does not experience time in the same way that you do. So this goes to deep questions, and I'm going to talk about a lot of things now. Like, can you eat a book? So you'd be like, no, it would hurt very much if I made you eat a book. But, and when you read a book, you are ingesting light. You are ingesting light in a secondary sense, in much the same way that you can take a bunch of fossil fuels or something else that you can burn and combust, generate energy in a turbine, create electricity, which is a form of light on the electromagnetic spectrum. I didn't even do the electromagnetic spectrum for you guys, but everything from, visible optical light all the way through, X-rays and gamma rays. And then on the other side of that, all the way down into infrared. Like this is a spectrum of frequencies. They're all moving at the speed of light. And then we'll talk about the speed of light. We need to talk. This is like having the talk. Guys, sit down. We need to have a talk. We need to talk about the speed of light. Maybe I should just jump onto that. Because Einstein is a beautiful teacher, but Einstein taught everyone that you can't get back to the speed of light. He taught you that it was a impossibility, that it could never happen, or basically that in order for matter to re-achieve light speed, it would take an infinite amount of energy. And it does take an infinite amount of energy. But the impression that that gave to humanity was kind of like a no hope. Like, no hope. Once you became matter, now you're stuck as matter, and there's no way for you to reaccelerate into light speed because it's going to take an infinite amount of energy. Who's got an infinite amount of energy sitting around to make that happen, right? Well, the truth is you do. And yes, part of it is the singularity that resides within you, but part of it is this comprehension that I'm going to give to you now. And we will draw it out to make it easier on your brain. So choose a nice new whiteboard. All right. This is the first time I'm ever drawing this, so go easy on me. Let's draw this as infinity. All right. This purple zone over here is infinity. It's singularity. And within singularity, I'm going to draw these as like perfect coherent light beams. But let's envision that they do have like trajectories, like that bounces off of that and goes to over here. And then that bounces off of that and goes to over here. But it bounces all around and it has, let's make it beautiful. There's all of these beautiful different complementary trajectories, like that one's going like that. But then it bounces over here like this. And then it bounces over here like this. And I'll do one more. But of course, I would like for you to envision all of these beautiful, delicate colors and shapes that are complementary, like dance partners, and they're always moving and oscillating. This is what the interior of the bullet train of infinity actually looks like. Like that would be like, can I make this smaller? Oh, I can make it smaller. Look at that. Look, bullet train. That's not a very well drawn bullet train. Let's make it nicer. That was not aerodynamic. You know me. I need to get this properly drawn here. There. Let's make it a nice, properly drawn bullet train. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Like it's ready to like, there we go. Zoom along. All right. And then here's like the bullet train track, right? These are supposed to be train tracks. Okay, good. That's a general kind of bullet train. Here's it's like little windshield or something like that. All right, good. You're on the bullet train. You got my impression. But now I'm going to erase all that stuff. You know why? Because the truth is there's nothing outside of the bullet train. So I'm not even going to draw anything around there because your mind wants to be like, oh, there's something outside the bullet train. Like your mind wants to think like, oh, like there's a person over here that can be standing on the side of the road and can be like, wow, like I'm so slow. I'm so dumb. I'm such a dumb, slow person just sitting here doing nothing. Those guys on the bullet train, they're really fast. They're going like this. Shoo! But I'm so slow and I'm so dumb. And I'm like, no, that actually doesn't exist. That actually does not exist. There is no one here. There is no dumb, slow person there thinking about their slowness or their dumbness. There is only non-existence. And if you want to know where does non-existence non-exist, it non-exists every place. So you want me to say, oh, well, non-existence only non-exists in this area where I'm scribbling around the perimeter of the area of infinite fastness, light speed and beyond. But I'm like, nope, non-existence includes every place. Non-exist, 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 non-exist. This doesn't make any sense. Stop, you're confusing me. I don't like it. Okay, don't worry, everybody. Don't get scared. Here's what I'm trying to say. The mind wants me to make a perimeter and say, inside of this bubble is everything that exists. And then outside of this bubble is everything that does not exist. And these two things do not interact. But I want you to know that the definition of what does not exist includes the interior of infinity. And that is the true essence of flying rainbow lasagna and singularity. That the singularity at times exists and contains stuff that exists, and at times contains stuff that non-exists. But everything that is at singularity or at light speed and beyond, or at this experience of infinity on the bullet train of infinite fastness, is only experiencing the things that exist. Think about what we're doing right now. Like I am walking along, giving my class, looking at this beautiful whiteboard, scribble, scrabble drawing that I just drew. I am not being like eaten by crocodiles. The crocodiles do not exist. In fact, I could name a very, very long laundry list of all of the things that are not in my room, all of the things that do not exist. Like there are no crocodiles here. There are no tigers here. Let me hydrate. Hold on a sec. I'm in a non-tiger reality. What else? There are no monkeys here. And there are no penguins here. Like we can name the entire animal kingdom. There are no pangolins here. There are no armadillos here. Like there's a very, very long laundry list of all the things that aren't here in my room. That is the stuff that non-exists. And it non-exists because it non-exists. That stuff does not exist. It's not on my timeline. It's not in reality. So in order for you to get to be going at this infinite amount of speed over here, what you need to do is be around everyone else who is infinitely fast, infinitely hot, infinitely free, and infinitely in existence. And there is no one who is there or who is surrounding you who is not infinitely fast and infinitely energetic and infinitely free and infinitely in existence. And this also includes infinitely intelligent, because this is infinite light, infinite information. This is the ultimate smarty smartness. That's why I said that guy that was sitting outside, he's like, I'm so dumb, I'm so slow, because he didn't have any light. to make him fast. Everyone who's moving fast on the bullet train of infinity is really, really light. They're really, really smart. They've got a ton of intelligence inside of them. And the stuff that doesn't exist non-exists everywhere. And it is non-existing. So it unexists. It unexists everywhere. And the only things that exist are the things that actually are going at light speed. So this is in relevance to what Einstein was saying. He said you can't get from where you are to where you want to be. I'm saying you can, but not everything that is here in this world of matter is going to be on board that train. Not everything. Some stuff needs to go into non-existence, and some stuff gets speeded up. And this is really pretty much the artistry of what you are experiencing. Which stuff gets speeded up and which stuff is not supposed to exist. And this is a non-random pattern, the pattern of true intelligence. Which stuff actually exists and which stuff does not exist, because you're in a non-pristine system where when you look around, if I said to you, like from the pristine intentions of how I wanted to share in this class, I said, and everything you see, all of this matter one day is going to get back into light, because that's what happens. Instead of even calling it like the singularity or something like that, like it's the origin, it's the destination, it's where it comes from. Everything goes back there. That's what I wanted to say. I'm sitting here going over my notes and I'm like, oh, I want to say everything goes back there or returns to light. And I could hear someone with attitude being like, everything. And I'm like, not everything. Some things are no thing. Some things do not exist. They are no thing. What the problem is right now, you're in a world where you're interacting with a lot of no things that actually unexist. So it can be confusing to your mind, because technically some of this stuff doesn't exist, but you're interacting with it. I know. Well, remember, technically light is bouncing off of a plant and it's interacting with that plant, and that plant hasn't even come into existence yet, but it appears as if it is there interacting with light. And then I perceive it after the light already bounces off of me, off of it to me. So sometimes these things happen, but it's not exactly a parallel allegory, but it's a similar type of thing where you're like, how can this be happening? But it is happening. You are here interacting with stuff that does not actually exist, and it will not be on board the bullet train. So please know that. And it is the ultimate art form to create a filter and accurately sort which things go to infinity and which things go to entropy. Let's talk about entropy. Entropy is like that book, The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. Universe, of course, being one narrative structure of multiple branching timelines. But the story goes, if the universe has a beginning and stars coalesced and light was generated and heat was generated and biological life was generated and sustained, but that at a certain point there is an end, because there's going to be a limited amount of stars that can ever be made. The stars coalesce out of planetary nebula. That's like the recipe for a star. So if there's no more flour at the store ever, you're not going to make any more cakes. All right? If there's no more planetary nebula at the store, you will not be making any more stars. And there will come a time when you will not have any more planetary nebula on the shelves. And then you will only have what stars you have already created in this world. And those stars have a limited lifespan. In this world of mortality, in this linear, context that I'm telling you about, we are coming out of this, but this is what I mean when I talk about the restaurant at the end of the world. And then when you have a limited number of stars that are in existence without capacity to make any new ones, then eventually they come to the end of their lifespan, or the end of their optical brilliance. Because when they no longer are emitting light and stories and timelines and possibilities and probabilities outward, they don't actually cease to exist, but they do evolve and transform, and that is when they become black holes. That's when it becomes evident that they have this singularity at the center of them, the infinite stretching inward. So during the time of their optical brilliance, there's a force that comes outward and balances out the crushing of the inward gravitational journey. And it keeps it in a alive state where it's pushing out, but also crushing in. But when there's no more expanding out, no more new stories, then it just crushes inward, and it crushes inward infinitely. Like infinite, infinite, infinite journey inward. That's the infinitely comfy chair that light never comes out of. That is light information goes into that level of stretchiness of the fabric of reality, and it never comes out of the comfy chair. It gets so comfy, it can't come out of the comfy chair. And that is its resolution. Light will be resolved. All of these journeys of the photon of light will be resolved, whether it is into the resolution of a super comfy chair, of a black hole, of a particular star that you came from, or of another black hole, of a different super comfy chair, or resolved in some way. But when all of the light is resolved on its journey, that is the end of the story. Then all you have is entropy, which is the Bose-Einstein condensate. And when that happens, there is no more light to inform the fabric of space-time to create matter. Light tells the fabric of space-time, make a little comfy chair over here so that hydrogen and oxygen can smush together and make water, and you can have biological life. That ain't going to happen anymore. When there's no more light, the fabric of reality doesn't have those little comfy chairs anymore. There is no more anything to hold that stuff together. But also what you get is super density, where all of this stuff stops moving. All of these, there's no more freedom. You're even less free. Like if you're solid matter, your molecules are stuck together and there's not a lot of freedom. You're like, I just exist here, like trying not to move into that guy's space too much, right? But what if you get squashed even closer together so that everybody is standing on top of everybody else? So imagine there's only one footprint enough for one person, but everybody superimposes themselves upon that one footprint. That is what a Bose-Einstein condensate is. It is the ultimate in density, the ultimate in loss of heat, no movement, no intelligence, no sentience, no self-awareness, really no existence. And all of that matter superimposes itself and occupies the one space of one atom, super dense, as if it's all on top of each other. And it is a unity consciousness moment, but it is not the same as the unity consciousness of the infinite expansion of moving at light speed and beyond. And that is the end result of what will happen to when there is matter in the world that is not informed by light. Basically, in the total absence of light, that is what happens to matter. It also does return to a type of singularity or unity consciousness, but it is at completely the other end of the spectrum of heat, light, intelligence than what we are talking about and what I'm encouraging you to identify with. The parts of you that are eternal, when we talk about light, you're defined by your flowingness. Light flows, electricity flows, time flows. These things are defined by their movingness. Think of yourself as those things. That's the real you. And the other stuff that is not the real you, or the stuff in the world that is not real eternal stuff, that stuff stops moving. And that is what the entropy state is. It is a frozenness in time, not the frozenness in time of a photon. A photon is not frozen in time, but experiences time as simultaneity. These are two totally different things. So light definitely flows. Light definitely flows and it moves and is defined by its movingness, but um, something that is frozen isn't moving through time at all, isn't experiencing time. So when I say the photon doesn't experience time, it doesn't mean that it doesn't move through time. It is time, it is experiencing time, but it does not experience time in a linear fashion as you do in your biological form. But everything is changing now because I'm giving you light. I already asked you, can you eat a book? And we all decided no, not be digestible, but you can eat light. You can eat optical light from the sun. I encourage people to do sun gazing and, of course, the infrared light. But you are eating light whenever you ingest and comprehend new concepts. And you are really in this class doing 500-pound overhead lifts while you are toiling to ingest new concepts, trying to get new forms of light into yourself. And that is really, really worth it. The effort is worth it because as you ingest more of this light into yourself, then that is how you accelerate to light speed. And the truth is, there is the correct amount of light that is in existence for you to re-accelerate to light speed. And the aspects of yourself that re-accelerate to light speed are the eternal aspects of self that should and shall be on the bullet train of infinity, and no aspects of self that are non-eternal come on board of the bullet train of infinity. And really, none of the aspects of your environment that are non-eternal come on board of the bullet train of infinity either. So wait, now I want to go back to mastering the fabric of space-time through the information that I've shared in this class. So what you learned is that, like, if you want to make a cake, you need to get ingredients from the store. The store is called atoms in the world. How do you put together atoms? You add light. Adding light is how you create those comfy chairs or gravitational small warpages in the fabric of space-time that bring together molecules. So you're not making something out of nothing. You're making something out of atoms and light using the fabric of space-time. What you can learn from that is how to rearrange the molecules that are in existence. You're like, I don't like this molecular structure for whatever reason. I think I will get everybody up and out of their comfy chair, unbond all of these molecules, and do something different with them. I wanted to bring that forward as a concept because this is important light for you to eat in terms of healing and purifying your body. Because I wanted you to know you can do that with any type of substance that you find displeasing. You have to reach levels of mastery to do this. So you shouldn't just be like, imagining that you're like a capricious, naughty person. Be like, I think I'll just demolecularize that lamp pole. Like, I just don't like it. You're like, no. Think about something like, I wanted to say, like microplastics in your own body. This is a very real challenge in modern life. Just environmental exposure through air, food, and water to microplastics, which have a detrimental effect on your health and vitality of your physical body, right? So as you're beginning to learn to master matter, you're like, well, maybe I could use this new concept of mastering fabric of space-time to demolecularize the microplastics that are in my own body so that way I can get them out of there. And that way I can live a healthier existence. Can you do this? The answer is yes. You both can and should do this. I don't think that you should demolecularize the plastic of like your computer though, or of my computer, because I'm using it right now. But microplastics that are like industrial toxic residues in your body, do it. That sounds perfect. So again, these use very, very good values and of course embody and express all of the values and all of the correctness, like what's on my shirt, the correct math of what you're doing. None of this is random. Like I've told you, it is non-random that a particular portion of light comes to interact with a particular leaf in order to create the building block known as glucose. Totally non-random. And that the patterns that molecules move in, Like right now, my ambient air in my home is whatever, 75 degrees. The amount of jumping, do-si-doing, wild horse running through the paddocks, movement of molecules through the atmosphere of my room here is non-random. They are not just like wildly, whatever, running to and fro. They are moving in very, very explicit, defined patterns. So as you start to master the concept of demolecularizing or remolecularizing, what you're doing is changing those warpages of the fabric of space-time. You also must be non-random. You're on the path of light here, not the path of random nonsense. Okay? So you got to do things the right way. And when you're doing demolecularization of the plastics, that is actually a very, very positive thing. I'm going to get back to that, but now I'm going to segue on to the concept of storing light over time, because I want to talk about like Mozart. If we didn't have musical notation, something like the ephemeral music of Mozart would not be easily transmitted through time. What if there's one guy who's really, really smart and he's great at playing music and he's alive? And you're like, this is so great. I love this music. I wish people 100 years from now could listen to this music. Like, this guy's not going to be here in 100 years. What do we do? What do we do? You guys are modern. You're like, record the music. They hadn't invented the recording music of music yet. What did they do? They use symbolic notation to write down the music. And that's what the musical staff is. It looks like lines that go across like this with black dots that go up and down like this. And this is symbolic language to represent the abstraction known as music. And this makes it possible to transmit music through time. And that is why we're able to still listen to the amazing music that some guy, whatever, 350 years ago, composed. That is really some pretty good stuff, right? Let's talk about books. Books make it possible for us to transmit ideas and concepts from deep antiquity into the present world. It can be a holy book. That's something like the Torah or the Bible. Not that I'm promoting that work, those literatures, but please know that they've been around for a long time and that it's quite extraordinary the level of information transmission without changing them. They've really copied those books by hand, letter by letter, quite well at times to be able to transmit that information. So books are a way to transmit light through time. Come on. And books are made of, now they're made of paper, which is made out of wood. But let's talk about wood. Wood is a way of transmitting light throughout time. Wood is how you store up light. And then at night, when there's not enough light, you burn the wood. And you're like, now I have light. So that way I can be warm and see stuff and even know stuff. And that also equates to, if you're going to have a torch, a lamp, a candle. For many, many years, humanity needed to have candles to see stuff and know stuff at night when the sun was not there. And that was its own level of high technology superpower to be able to have some form of artificial light so that way you didn't have to simply stop work when the sun went down. Even though now we're all trying to teach ourselves to live in this primal way again because everybody's watching Netflix at 1 a.m. in the morning. And it's not very good for your mitochondria and your circadian rhythm, like snacking and watching Netflix at 1 in the morning. No, even though I'm as naughty as anyone. And you want to know what are my Netflix and what I like to watch. Reruns of my favorite shows. But we shouldn't do that. What we should do is have campfire after the sun goes down. And then, of course, we should follow our natural rhythms. I'm not going to get into silly things. And now I have to recalibrate back to with the important stuff that I was talking about. Light, an artificial light. There we go. Artificial light did allow for humanity to be able to not only do work after the sun goes down, but like to have time to read a book, to have time away from leisure time, away from your daily activities of survival, to be able to learn. So there's a lot of stuff here. So being able to be literate and to be able to have candles and to be able to have information that is stored light, stored in a book. Okay, because let's say it like this. If I'm a beam of light, and it's a convention to say I'm a beam of light, but imagine I'm going on my journey, I'm going on my journey, I'm going on my journey. I would simply keep going on my journey at light speed or beyond. It takes a lot for you to take this thing that's going super duper duper fast and somehow make it not be going super duper fast. How do we do that? What do we do? What do you do with electricity? You actually do not have electricity where you kind of have it going super duper duper fast. Does electricity move at light speed? The answer is no. Why not? Because the answer is it's technically bouncing between two boundaries. It doesn't move in a straight line. It technically kind of bounces between the two boundaries. That would be the insulators of the wire. And that slows it down a little bit. So a lightning bolt or electricity flowing through wires in your house does not flow at what is the presumed and observed speed of light. It is somewhat slower. But when you get electricity in a battery, is the electricity like running back and forth in the battery? Is it like running on a little tiny treadmill? Is it running at all? It's not. It is not running. It is not flowing. It is not moving. It's not doing anything. When you have electricity stored up in a battery, it is like stored up as a chemical reaction. And then you do something to get it to flow and to get it to become unstored. This is what a book is. A book is a way of storing up light. This is what wood or beeswax candle is. It is a way of storing up light. We don't eat a book, but we do ingest it. And in this way, the light can be transferred from people, generation to generation. So this is different than the oral transmission. If I'm not literate and I do not have books or a way to create knotted strings or woven cloths or some form of cuneiform tablets to send to someone else, then all I can do is tell you with the light from my mouth stories that you then internalize. You eat the light from me. And this is ancient stuff. This is pre-literate stuff. And this is how people have brought light to other people for a very, very long amount of time. Now, I want to reassure you, I'm not planning on going anywhere, but in the ancient traditions of like teachers, what happens, like this is like from Asia and the teachers of the traditions of that area of the world, like they contain a lot of light. They would spend their career or whatever, their time on earth in maturity, sharing light with other people who would be their students or their disciples. And then when they die, what happens? They put them on a funeral pyre. Again, I'm not planning on going anywhere, but this is the template for light. When that teacher is on the funeral pyre, like they sent all of their light from their mouth into all these different students. And then what happens? Like, then their body gets burned. And then the light of their flesh also enters into their students. And then those people take that light of what they learned, the cognitive light, and also literally the infrared light that they have absorbed from the previous generation, and then they bring it to the next generation. And then this is the oral transmission for many generations. And then this is how information was shared for a long time in many human traditions, all right? But clearly that's not the only way to do it. Books are a way of storing light. So the light was stored in the teacher. The teacher brought light to the students. The teacher container was burned and turned into light. And now the students become the teacher, and then they're the container for light. Light is transmitted in this social and educational or educative network through time. That's one way to transmit light through time. How do you solidify light so that it's, stored up through time? Wood, oral transmission, books. And books also should encompass floppy disks, thumb drives. What else? I already joked. Cuneiform tablets, any kind of physical storage device for information. But when something is stored in a physical storage device like that, what happens to it if nobody reads it? The light is stored there. The light was going on its journey, came to a person. It became cognitive thought. Then that person wrote it as a book. And maybe they made a PDF and they stuck it on a thumb drive somewhere. And then the book is there. The light is there. The pattern is there. And then what happens to it? It should go on its journey. When you read and access that information, you ingest it, you have a cognitive experience of it, and you literally send that experience back to the sun and the stars as a return journey for the light. And that is what it's supposed to do. They're like, what if nobody ever accesses it? Then what happens is the light's stuck for forever. The light will, at a certain point, have to exit this system. The light has to go home. Light goes home. Light doesn't stay. Light is always moving. Light is always only ever going to be on a little temporary, not stuck, but temporary storage, or temporary limited motion through time. And then it's going to get back home. And this is you. This is you. I'm telling you this because you're not stuck in any way. So Einstein was like, sorry, kid, you're stuck. I'm like, you're not stuck. But you have to know not everything gets back home. You are getting back home. Very good, important stuff. Let's talk about clank metal spaceships. Here's a star and here's a star. And here's the apparent linear distance between point A and point B. Two stars that seem to be far apart. In my model that I give to you, they are not far apart. They are totally stuck together like this. And there's a ballooning fabric of space-time. Can you, A, fly a rocket ship from point A to point B? Like here's point A and point B. Can we fly a rocket ship to be someplace in between there? Can we build a ladder and climb on up there and be in that place between these two places? Can we fly a rocket ship or build a ladder to be a part of that curved ruffle of the fabric of space-time? Can we? I'm not even done asking the question yet. This is time stretching back behind me. I'm the photon. This is the implied journey that I took to get here to this moment in space-time, 3:12 p.m., to be able to be talking to you today. Can you jump into my timeline? Can you fly in a clank metal spaceship or a clank time twisting whatever apparatus, time machine, TARDIS, and go into my past that is being allegorically represented as my arm stretching backward into the physical space behind me? Can you fly to where my elbow is? Can you fly to where my fingers are? Can you fly to where my sculpture is in the past? And the answer is no. The answer is no to all of that. That was a very long question and a very short answer. Moving on. No, I'm joking. No, to elucidate, you cannot jump into someone else's past. You actually cannot fly to interstellar space in between these vast distances of stars. You actually cannot build a ladder and get in between these places that are actually the journey of the photon. The photon walked in those footsteps, but you cannot walk in those footsteps. That's the story that brought the photon forward, but that is not the story that brought you forward. It's a bit forward to think that you could occupy their footsteps, just making a little joke there. There used to be this old TV show. I'm not just getting silly. I really was preparing this seriously on my notes. That was called Quantum Leap. That was like an 80s TV show. And in that TV show, this guy would jump into someone else's life where he would find himself in their body. And then he'd look in the mirror and look at what he looked like. And then you have to figure out what he had to do to try to fix their life. Cute show, right? And kind of maybe got people thinking in a nonlinear fashion. But the answer is like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. You cannot do that. Why not? Because light is customized. It is bespoke light. And that's why really when I was very early in writing my songs many years ago, that's one of the first light songs that I wrote. It's called Bespoke Light. It's a simple song, but it has a nice melody to it, and a nice quality to it. It's a good waking up in the morning and making coffee type of song. But your light is customized to you. Think about it. Like I eat eggs almost every day. And sometimes people talk about this. They're like, oh, eating eggs again. Like I've eaten so many eggs in my life. Like, how come I can't just eat eggs once? And then that's enough. Because every breakfast event is a totally new event. You're not eating the same eggs that you ate 12 years ago. You're eating a completely different set of eggs. And you're entangling yourself with a completely different set of quantum possibilities and light each time you eat a new set of eggs. Different chickens, different potentials, different protein structures, different thought forms, different stuff. Every time you eat eggs, it is not the same, although you are, preparing ostensibly the same ingredients. But every time you eat anything, it's a completely new event. It is not a standardized event. And this is why you always need to have more food. Like I'm hungry right now. Sorry, guys. Sometimes I am. I always try to eat before class. And I did. I ate good stuff. But I'm also walking on the treadmill. But you have to always eat new things, not only because you are like burning and using up your energy and your resources, but also because you require new light and new ideas. It's not just that you used up old stuff, you need new stuff. Please think of it in that way. Like when you eat protein, well, okay, when you eat, you're eating light, flat out. Some of the light that you eat is turned into or comes in the form of a glucose. And then your body at the mitochondrial level is using it to create ATP in that incredibly complex 13-stage cycle that liberates the light so that it's an energy that you can use. Like I'm using energy to move my arms right now, using energy to move my legs right now. I'm using energy to flap my moving mouth parts right now. Some of what you eat stays as you, becomes building blocks of you. So some of the proteins that you eat, you burn and use as energy. Some of the proteins that you eat stay with you and become a part of you. The stuff that you burn, it's pretty clear to see, like it is matter that is being liberated back into light. But the stuff that you keep as you, it stays as matter. So you're looking at any of these patternings as a time when light is really being expressed through your body. Start to think about that on the multicellular level and on the subcellular level. You might not think of yourself as a quantum genius, but that's what's going on in your mitochondria. I call the membranes of the mitochondria your quantum laboratory. That is literally where your body is making all of these choices about how much light you're going to emit, how much light energy you're going to use, about how much stuff is going to get, how much light is stored up as fat, and about how much light is released because your body's like, I don't need this light right now. Like, I don't need this glucose right now. I got plenty of glucose right now. I don't need this. I don't know what to do with this. And that pattern and that the choices that are made on the subcellular level, that metabolic level, that's an expression of light as well. The light doesn't just get stuck inside of you. It resides inside of you. It becomes a part of you. When you're eating an egg, you're eating light. Some of that light chooses to be a part of you. That's really the only way that light can be a part of the journey that brought you from way back here in the past to who you are now. So you can't just be like that scientist in that science fiction show and just jump into a random moment in the past. You don't have access to that past because you're not a part of that organism. In order to have access to that past, you'd have to be a part of that organism. And that is what happens when you eat food and you internalize it. The organism and the light that you have eaten becomes a part of you. And then it is time entangled with you and it has access to your past. Now let's talk about photons. Can you be eaten by a photon? And the answer is yes, can and should be and shall be eaten by a photon. I think I just liquefied somebody's brain. But that's what this class is all about. So somebody needs to take a break. Like you lift too many weights and you get dizzy. You need to sit down for a minute. Somebody might need some first aid. Okay. And I'll be sure to get to all of your wonderful questions, but right now I'm just focusing. When you are on the path of light, you are not that stick figure that I drew that's on the side of the infinite bullet train of infinity moving super duper fast. You're not. You are not a stupid, standing still, dumb, unintelligent stick figure that's like, oh, I'm moving so slow. I wish I was on the path of light. No, you are literally standing directly in front of the path of light. I should actually do it up here to my face. As the light comes into you, you're standing directly in front of the bullet train of light, and it is coming directly at you. And like Aurora, this metaphor makes me feel a little uncomfortable. I'm like, I know. But doesn't it feel a lot nicer when you think about like sunbathing? Like if you imagine yourself like you're on a beautiful sandy beach or beautiful tropical island. There's beautiful, gentle sunlight, and there's swaying palm trees. Maybe there might be coconut umbrella drinks, but then the light from the sun comes gently on your face and falls onto your body. And that's what being eaten by a photon and being on the path of light is really like. It's not like, just getting run over by a bullet train type of thing. But that's what happens when you are on the path of light. You are redirecting your consciousness from being on the sidelines to being in the epicenter. Kiki's here. Thought I heard somebody back there. Just playing very nicely. When you're on the path of light, you are not a bunch of dead, stupid, slowed down matter. You're not gnostically wrangling with the fact that you're in a physical container and feeling so slow and so imprisoned and so trapped by him. No. When you're on the path of light, you're like, something? I am in a physical container that is light that is slowed down into matter. All of the metabolic processes are an aspect of light. I just ate a bunch of light this morning. I am light, as light is a cognitive process and is happening in my brain and self-awareness right now. I am light as I contain information. I am light as I am sharing light with other people through the truthfulness and informative aspects of my speech or my behavior in this world. You are identifying with light. You're the stuff that moves fast. You're not the stuff that moves slow. You're the stuff that moves fast. And you're also the stuff that is intelligent and that is getting more intelligent. This speaks to some of the questions that I asked in some of the earlier whiteboards and I talked about 2 weeks ago. Where does all this light come from? Is there an infinite amount of light? Is there an infinite amount of energy? What is energy doing? Does energy change and transform as it does stuff? And the answer is there is an infinite amount of light and an infinite amount of information, and it's always growing. The cat would say, how can it be infinity and be getting bigger? But it is. That's it. Don't worry about it. Yes, infinity is not a finite number. It is an infinite number, and you can have an infinity that is constantly growing. You can have infinity plus 1. You can have infinity plus infinity. You can have multiple infinities. I don't want to get in an infinity contest with you, like my infinity is bigger than your infinity. Infinity is a difficult concept for the human linear cognitive mind. I recognize that, but please know that it's inherent in the sense of what it is. Infinity is infinite and is always growing. So maybe to your linear narrative mind, it's easier to conceive of it by saying that there's a certain number of stories of what's going on, which molecules get married and divorced and married again, and the liberated electrons going around and, you know, going with different people and things like that. But there's always going to be new stories. New stories. Like you're always going to make new breakfasts. I don't know why people get into ennui where they're like, eaten so many breakfasts and I'm just done and I never want to have to eat eggs again. I'm like, no, there's always new stories. There's always something new. And that is also a big part of the concept of flying rainbow lasagna. Like after we do flying rainbow lasagna, the dance, then you go out into reality and you're like, there's new stuff. You're going to see stuff that you haven't seen before. You're going to experience and encounter new things and see new things. And it's not just like they were always there and you didn't notice them. They're really new things. And you either generated them or you jumped into a new alignment that now those new things are accessible to you. And these molecular bondings and unbondings are stories. So when the photon is home with the sun, in its comfy pajamas, not going anywhere, and it balloons outward this narrative ruffle of the fabric of space-time, what it's doing is creating a story. It's creating a narrative structure. And in that narrative structure, some carbon dioxide and some water, they get married and they make some glucose. They made beautiful glucose together. And that glucose went into me, or maybe you. And it made life. And it made all these amazing things happen as an end result of making life. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the types of matter that flow into light, in and out of light, like organic matter, and stuff that is relatively inert that doesn't flow that much. So the stuff that flows into and out of light, that's pretty easy to see. Like light gets translated into matter through a plant. The plant grows. You see, I told you I had this plant behind my it's on my music stand over here, like on my speaker. Like I got it when it was this big, and now it's 2 years later. Now it's literally this big. That is a lot of matter that manifested over 2 years right here while I'm talking to you guys in class every day. More matter is here in the world as a result of that. And then what's going to happen? Well, it's not an edible plant, but in a perfect analogy, it would be an edible plant, and then another animal would eat it, or I would eat it, and then or I would eat another animal would eat it, and I would eat the animal, and then that light would go inside of me. Sorry, like I said, I also have insects inside of my house here. It's not a pristine system. The light would then be a part of my body, but then I would translate it into calories, which is the liberation of light from matter, and also cognitive events, which is the liberation of light from matter, and I would send it back to the sun. But there are some things like minerals that don't change and transform that much. There are some forms of matter that are constantly like, it's light, it's matter, it's light, it's matter. They're constantly transforming on a fast level between these types of formfulnesses. But there are some things that don't transform that much. And that's pretty much what humans are using to make objects out of. So plants and animals, things are transforming pretty fast amidst plants and animals. But what you call inert objects, which is mostly in your world stuff that now are metals or plastics and like plastic polymers. And that's a wide category. But those things don't translate that much. And metals, that's a mineral, that's a crystal. And minerals and crystals don't transform that much. Light does not really come into the world and all of a sudden become a crystal. But light does come into the world and all of a sudden become a glucose molecule. The crystals and microminerals are things like the minerals that are necessary for us to have health in our body, electrolytes and things like that. minerals that are absolutely necessary for soil health. And these are analogous to the microminerals in our own digestive tract. So, plants have to have sodium and potassium and calcium. Hey, I gotta have those things in my life too. We both need to have those things in our lives. That's the closest that the mineral world comes to transformation into and out of light. It pretty much is matter. It pretty much is in formfulness. It pretty much doesn't come out of formfulness, but it is in partnership, and it is a part of biological life. And so, like, my necklace is made out of metal and it will last a long time. Somebody made this out of metal so that it'll last a long time. It's not made out of broccoli. Like, broccoli will not last a long time. That's why we don't accessorize with that particular substance. Like, there's a reason why we have longer lasting matter objects in our world that are made out of matter that doesn't turn into light very easily. It's for information storage, and it does store information well, and it does last for a long amount of time. But then here's the key point. Will the information get stuck in a book? Will the information get stuck in a hard drive? If light goes onto a book, if I write a bunch of words in a book, and if then nobody reads the book, the light is stuck in the book, what happens? Eventually the book decomposes. Well, the book might get burned in a fire, but nobody burns it, and if nobody reads it, and there's no whatever, giant lava monsters that ignite it on fire, then what happens? Then it decomposes. That means the molecules, the light that held the molecules of those pages together goes away, and it is no longer in a bonded form. The light information that held the ink on the pages goes away. That is no longer in a bonded form. The light does dissipate, and it does eventually go back home. And so light eventually always is going to flow. Light is always going to go on its journey. That's the best way I can say this. Light does not get stuck. Light makes very conscious choices about where it is going on its journey. It intentionally goes into containers. It intentionally transforms the fabric of space-time to bring in greater levels of complexity and greater levels of intelligence and light. And then it continues on its journey. This movement between light and matter, and then matter back into light, is part of the journey. There are also journeys of light where light simply goes on its journey and it never interacts with matter. And I drew that for you on the very first day. And that would be the red circle. The photon stays home, but a big giant loop, that is the loop of the fabric of space-time. That would be the photon going on its endless journey all the way somewheresville, infinitely to somewhere that it never gets to, because it doesn't interact with anything, basically having no experience. It goes and it goes and it goes and it moves and moves and it moves, and it never really has any experience. It's a no story. It has a no story, but an endless nothing story. Okay. I was able to talk about almost all the things that I wanted to talk about. I'm sure that more of the things that I want to emphasize and encourage will come back. But now let me get to some of your questions and comments. All right. Martine, and thank you for being here, says, gold must have a really deep comfy chair because it's not willing to react with other molecules much. You got it. Very smart person. So Martine is clearly a molecular scientist. And he knows what's the deal. There are some things that are not very reactive. They don't bond with other atoms. They don't change very much on a molecular level. They don't corrode. So gold does not oxidize. Oxidation is corrosion. Like iron rusts, oxygen is added. What's another one? Copper. Copper oxidizes and develops that greenish patina. That's the color of the Statue of Liberty. But gold does not. I do have pieces of gold. I have like a little tiny piece of gold over here. I can show it to you. But it does not. This is brass. And it actually does tarnish. Gold. Oh, my earrings are gold. There you go. They do not tarnish at all. And I don't worry about wearing them, in the shower or whatever because of that. Gold does not have a place on it on a molecular sense for oxygen to get onto it. So gold, how would I use that in my analogy? If gold is sitting in its comfy chair, there's no space for any dogs or cats or hamsters to jump down there in the comfy chair with it. It's like, nope, I'm just sitting here on my own. There's no space for you. No space for you. So that's what it's like when you just really don't want to have the dog stealing the blankets or whatever. Cheeky totally steals the blankets, guys. If I'm just going to be straight about our relationship, we have a beautiful relationship, but she steals all of the quilts and all of the blankets. And I sleep on one tiny edge of the bed. And she sleeps under the bed too. Should have set that up as her own. Oops, sorry. That was my thing stopped, and that's why I was so silly. But gold is when you don't have space for anybody to jump into bed with you, and you're just going to be on your own. There are some other molecules that are similar. They are non-reactive. So, for example, the noble gases do not bond with other atoms in order to create more complex molecular structures. They don't have the apertures to be able to make those types of bonds. So they do not get into comfy chairs with other people. And so in order for biological life to happen, I emphasized this and I'll re-emphasize it again. You have to have a certain amount of heat light intelligence to be able to have intelligence like we have intelligence here. In order for us as biological intelligent creatures to be here in the world, the sun in our sky had to make sure that our planet has enough heat light intelligence. And that means that water is in a liquid form and oxygen is not frozen. If you have a planet where water is frozen and oxygen is frozen, there are very crucial molecular bonds that cannot happen. Crucial complexities of formation that cannot happen. Matter cannot be formed, and also the rearrangement of puzzle pieces or the expression of certain dance patterns cannot happen. And of course, I talked about this too. Pressure has something to do with it. How many atmospheres of pressure is going on, and whether something is liquid, solid, or in its gaseous form. So you have to have the right amount of heat, but you also have to have the right amount of pressure. But without those ideal circumstances and enough heat, we would not be able to oxidize and cellularly respirate and have biological life. And so I talk to you about that all the time. Like, can you plant a seed in the winter? And you're all like, duh, Aurora, we all know you can't plant a seed in the winter. Well, what happens? Well, like, the ground is frozen. Water is frozen. The water is in a state where it cannot bond and unbond. The light cannot come into the system because the dance partners can't move. It's a system that can't contain more light. So in order for a planet to have more light, like us at a biological level, there has to be enough heat in that system so that it can contain more light and get more light into the system. I'm going to pretend to be my cigar chomping caricature that I sometimes do in my other class. Hey, kid, you got to spend money to make money, right? I don't know if you've ever heard that. It's like very old school, traditional finance way of talking about things, TradFi. But yes, you got to spend money to make money. You have to have heat light intelligence in the system in order to receive and contain and generate and experience more heat light intelligence. All right. That's the name of the game in everything that we're experiencing. The system that we're in is a beautiful, miraculous system that gets more and more complex. More light is generated in this system. You have infinity, and the infinity of light is continually expanding. And that is what we are experiencing. And that is pretty much like the answer to the existential question, Mommy, Daddy, why are we here? What is going on? And the answer is like, you're here in order to experience light, be light experiencing itself, and to add to the light that's in the world and to make it possible for more light to be in the world. All right, so Kim Rose says, does a dry sauna session count as taking in light at any level since it's heat? Or is it just liberating light from our bodies when sweat is produced? Thank you for asking. When you take a sauna, you are definitely eating light. Absolutely. And I totally encourage people to do sauna or to be part of a sweat lodge or something like that. These are very ancient, positive, life-affirming, health-affirming cultural activities that I've done many times, and I think that they are wonderful. So yes, when you go into sauna, even though it's dark inside or in a sweat lodge, it is dark, and all that you might see is the glowing of the rocks. That's all you got. Infrared everywhere. You have heat and you have the glowing of rocks and the incandescence of that material. And that is the light that comes into you. Light is itself healing and life affirming. Light sustains you. Food is solidified light. Heat is solidified light. Of course, you have to have the right type of heat, not a blowtorch. That is not life affirming, nor like 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So, I mean, sometimes it does get very, very hot here where I live. And of course, I've been in deserts where it's also very hot. No, you must protect yourself from excessive heat. But we're talking about the right amount of heat under the right conditions is light. And also, if we're going to talk about this health and light, information flow is critical for health. That means you have to have just the right amount at just the right times of any type of information, of food. How many eggs do I eat at one time? Usually 2, sometimes 3. It depends on how hungry I am or how much I'm doing in terms of my activity. But I do not eat 3,000. That would just be 1 decimal place too many for it to be considered a healthful amount of light. No. So in terms of light, like you should have a certain amount of ideas or cognitive concepts coming to you. When you become a light eater, and let's talk about this, because everything that I've been teaching you in this class has been engineered, but that's a horrible word, but like structured, intentionally architected to bring you towards the realization of your own inevitability of your light body, that you are made to eat light. And right now you're eating the intermediaries of light, which is like avocados, eggs, cherries, something like that. But eventually you will eat pure light. That doesn't mean that you eat nothing. Just like I told you, to make matter right now, you don't make matter out of nothing. As you are right now, one day you can spontaneously generate, but you're not there yet. Because I'm not going to be Einstein, and I'm not going to tell you spontaneous generation, like pushing my glasses up my nose. Spontaneous generation is a physical impossibility, and then you will go off and think that it's never going to happen. I'm like, no, it can happen. But you got to really lift a lot of weights to be able to spontaneously generate, to make something out of nothing. But right now you make something out of something. All right. You want to make cake? Go to the store, get the ingredients, make cake. You want to make matter? Go to the store, you get light. You make matter out of light. That is what you do. You have to have the right amount of light, which are concepts coming into you at all times in order to sustain your metabolism. So that's one thing. I eat 3 eggs a day, but I don't eat like 0 eggs per day, because that would again be a missing decimal place. No, the empty set. Like you have to have something. You have to have the right amount of cognitive light flowing to you in order to optimize your metabolism as a light being. So when I listen to songs, sometimes I'm like, oh, I love this song. It's a new song. I've never heard this song before. The song is so great. Yeah, it makes me feel really good. And it makes me feel like I'm dancing. But then if you listen to that song over and over and over, by like the 25th, 27th, 700th, 7,000th time you've listened to the song, you're like, I am so bored with this song. And then at a certain point, you'll be like, I never want to hear the song again because there's no more light in the song. There was light maybe the first 27 times you listened to the song, but then at a certain point, it just became repetitive and boring and then corrosive and then annoying and then torturous. And then again, you hope that you never would hear that song again ever in your life. So light is not repetitive. Light is information. When you get information, like it informs you, it's not just a rehashing of the same old stupidity. It's not the same old. Okay, you're already well calibrated to all of this. All I have to do is say the word, it's not boring. You guys already know what light nutrition is. Light nutrition is the opposite of boring. And when you find yourself bored in your life, just recognize you need nutrition. You are hungry for light. Now, this is hard because I know that a lot of you are like, I'm bored a lot. I want to say all the time, because maybe you're going to school and you're like, this class is pretty boring. We're doing your homework. You're like, this homework is pretty boring. We're doing your job. You're like, this job is pretty boring. This is a problem because the world that you're in is not necessarily a light-filled world. It's a very mediocre world and a very non-pristine system, but you want to optimize your life as you're becoming a light being, as you're awakening your light body. You can't go for low nutrition. You have to feed yourself with higher levels of cognitive nutrition. So that means you can't just always listen to the same songs. You got to listen to new songs. Or like what I do, I write new songs because I get bored with my music. I'm like, I listened to that a million times. I need to write something new, or find a new process as an artist, or work with a new color, or get a new tool. Same thing with your muscles. Muscles get bored. You're like, I always do this exercise. I always do this exercise. And your muscles are like, I know, we're bored. You always do this exercise. You got to do new exercises. And then your muscles are like, this is hard. Now I'm going to grow. You have to be challenged, and you have to have variety, and you have to have novelty. And that is where real growth comes from. And that is how the system that is in infinity becomes infinity expanded, or infinity plus one, where you are constantly learning and evolving. That is really what life is about. And that is really why the world of matter exists. And that is really why you are here in this world. When you're on the bullet train of infinity, you are not in stasis. I drew that little purple bubble and I wanted to show you you're all coherent light. You're at optimum speeds. You're not even just like a wild horse running around, like running free with the wind in your hair, and you're like running super fast, in the opposite direction super fast, and everyone else is doing the same exact thing, and you all never stop. And you're always creating and innovating new patterns, and you're never bored. So you're not just like sitting on the bullet train of infinity doing nothing or whatever, like hum-de-dum-dum, drink a cup of tea, everything is fine. You're really very, very active on the bullet train of infinity. And the patterns that you're making are always new and innovative, new songs. Why is that? Because the truth is, the sun and the stars get bored with old songs. They're like, we've heard this one before. Let's make a new one. We've done these patterns before. Let's innovate something new. We have explored these time patterns and possibilities before. We need to do something new and different. So you need to have new nutrition every day. Know that you're not eating the same, eggs every day, because science is very reductionist. It's like, egg is 80 calories. It's not the same 80 calories that I ate yesterday. I need a new 80 calories today. You can't listen to the same things, be in the same patterns, and do the same activities. You must do new stuff, okay? When you become a light eater, you cannot be bored. If you're a light eater and you're like floating along through the higher levels of higher dimensions, and you start to get bored, you're like, you're gonna not fall, but like kind of like, descend out of your reality. You won't be able to sustain yourself at that higher level of reality. So think about it like the most amazing feverish art party where you're like, I gotta create, I gotta generate, I gotta make something new. If you start to go into just like your same old, boring patterns or whatever, like you're just gonna kind of fall to the periphery and not really stay in the generative center of what is going on there. So yeah, no, there's a huge need for novelty. You will be hungry for caloric consciousness calories, and you will also need to and want to generate new ideas to innovate that, because that's kind of like the updraft, like the lift that keeps you going. So when you're bored in life, that's drag. And they even say that, like, what a drag. And it is a drag, and it takes you out of those exalted states. To stay in those exalted states, you need to be in a constant state of novelty and miraculous wonder and never bored and innovation. And that's really that's what we're built for. All right, this is good because I think I'm actually, through your questions, I think I'm actually getting through the final good stuff that I wanted to share with you. Okay, Kimrose also asks, are human emotions part of the real me? Or can I send them to entropy? Kind of kidding, but not really kidding. It depends on how we define human emotions. Some emotions are the real you, and some emotions are not the real you. Some emotions are the end result of drag and of distortions through time. And so okay, also this. Matter is light that is slowed down, but it is not necessarily distorted. So sometimes light gets slowed down and it turns into matter and it becomes less its true self and it becomes distorted or an aberration, something that really shouldn't exist. But when light becomes matter in a correct way, it is beautifully structured and non-distortive, and it adds to the intelligence of the totality of the tapestry of aliveness. So same thing with your emotions. Some emotions are your true emotions. They're your real feelings, and they're how you really feel in the world. And some emotions are distortions that are the end result of your light being slowed down in a distortive way or in an aberrant way, or are the end result of you responding to or bouncing off of something that is a distortion or an aberrance. And that's the challenge, that you're in this world that is not a pristine system at the moment. And even though you're trying to like super elevate, get really fast, ascend, get into this nice fast state, there's all of this stuff that you're touching upon that really slows you down, stuff that's an emotional drag. And the stuff can be sometimes other people's stuff. This is the story of me. Because if it was just me, no offense, guys, but if it was just me, I would already be at light speed now. That is like that sign on the billboard that is right by the airport, and it says, if you lived here, you'd be home by now. It's like, if it weren't for all this emotional drag, I would be home by now. And this is true. But guess what? I'm not trying to be like blasé about it, because that's why I'm here. I'm like, yes, it's true. I would be home by now, but I have a job to do here in terms of sharing light with people and helping them to accelerate so that that way they can get faster and get to light speed. So it's worth it. But there's some stuff that's here that's never going to accelerate. And that stuff really, really drags me down, because that's just what I call garbage trash. So good people that are ignorant that need to learn, happy to help them accelerate. Stuff that's never going to learn, that is like the sweat hogs of insouciance, I have zero patience for. And I'm like, I have a light speed. Pardon me, I have a light speed to get to. Get out of my way. You know what I mean? Yeah, because there's actually plenty of that in your world, both organisms, organizations, concepts, dynamics, and other structures at the foundation of what it is to be human in this world right now, that are non-eternal, very drag-filled structures that do nothing but slow me down, and they slowed you guys down too. And so, yeah, bouncing off of those structures can give you emotions that are a lot of not your real self emotions, but you're feeling them, which is valid and authentic, because you're bouncing off of stuff that shouldn't even exist. The stuff that shouldn't even exist, the naughtinesses or whatever we would call them. But yes, no, but you're allowed to feel the way you feel when you feel friction. But Because I don't want you to be like, la, 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 everything is fine, even when everything is not fine. That's not authentic. So yeah, no, you got to fix the system. So I would say fix the system with me. Let's do it together. And then find out what it actually feels like. What calibrate your emotions to what is it like when you're like in a real system? Like imagine you're in a car and there's all these potholes and it's always like ka-chunka, 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 ka-chunka. Like this is what driving is. Like this is not what driving is. Like I would like for you to feel what it's like to drive on a freshly paved road where you're like, wow, like this, look at that. Like we're not shaking all over the place and things feel pretty smooth and nice. You can have a conversation. Like that's the difference, that you're in this world where there are so many emotional potholes that life has become defined by this type of up and down roller coaster existence and a lot of profound discomforts on the emotional level. But really, when you are able to get rid of those foundation emotional disturbances, then you have this very placid, beautiful, serene ride. And that's what it really feels like to be here. And that's the, that was the intention for the quality of experience for being here. Pedro says, and thank you, Pedro, long-term student, for being here, says, at the start of COVID, I did eat light. Well, if opening my mouth and letting light reach my throat can be considered eating, yeah, totally. I hope that you get back to eating light. So you can eat light through here, right? But mostly I would encourage you to eat light with your mind. And so it does involve a fine tuning of pretty much your whole entire skull situation. And that's everything from how your neck and your skull sit together, the sutures of your skull, like how your skull plates or tectonic plates fit together, how your eyes and sinuses fit together, how your tongue fits and your jaw into the roof of your mouth, how that all fits together, how your eustachian tubes and inner ears fit together, and even how the crystals inside of your pineal gland fit together. All of that stuff up here needs to be perfectly calibrated. And when you get the violin calibrated, like guys, I have not played a violin. It's very hard. I don't have to tune my piano. I do not have a piano. But even if I had a grand piano, you hire someone to tune the piano. It's their entire job of their life. It's very hard to do. It's hard to play on a non-tuned instrument. You have to consider your brain and your upper structures of your apparatus here to be like an instrument that needs to be tuned. And it's very, very hard to play the correct music without that beautiful fine tuning. So to be able to really eat light, gotta fine tune everything up here. And that really is about your light body too, because that includes everything about your mitochondria, everything even about your hair and your sebaceous glands, everything about your digestion, and a lot of things about your mind, and a lot of things about your DNA. So this is not an easy thing. It's not an easy, just open a can type of thing, like ascension in a can. Open up the can, drink it, and boom, and then throw the can over your shoulder, like I'm ascended, I'm done. It's not that way. It is a very, very concerted effort to be able to do this, and then also to try to do it in a world where there's, very many obstacles and very many non-ideal circumstances. You have to be even more of a supreme, real disciplined person to be able to accomplish this. Pedro also says cannibal photons are difficult to digest. So well, now let's talk about that, because I am telling you that like I'm eating eggs, chickens, sometimes even bisons. And are they sad? Are they like, oh no, I hope someone named Aurora doesn't eat me. I don't want my light to get stuck in some long-haired girl walking on a treadmill somewhere. No, they're not that way at all. And this is a big recalibration to how we look at food. No, the avocados are not quaking and cowering on their tree and being like, be quiet, hope nobody hears us. We don't want to get eaten. They're not. They're actually very, very happy to get eaten. None of this means that you should treat your food with disrespect. You shouldn't waste. You should eat what you kill. But when you kill an animal or a plant or whatever, when you're utilizing minerals as fertilizers in your garden, celebrate. They are celebrating. Actually, all the chickens that are part of my muscles are celebrating. They're like, hooray, You know why? We became a part of Aurora, and you know what? Aurora is gonna ascend. And I am now, as a chicken, I'm speaking as a chicken now. I'm a part of Aurora's whole entire life journey, all the way from here, the moment of flying rainbow lasagna, all the way through all of these amazing adventures into this moment now. When I eat that chicken then becomes quantum entangled with me, and it didn't jump into my timeline like, quantum leap, and now it's looking out through my eyes. It became integrated into my muscle fibers, and it became a part of who I am on a deep level. And my soul and the chicken's soul are intertwined. And I treat the chicken with respect, love, and appreciate that it has become a part of me. And it feels it's reciprocal. It's like, hooray, I'm a part of Aurora the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. This is non-random. Start thinking about it in non-random terms. Like, that chicken is like, I am going to one day become a part of Aurora the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, or insert your name here. And that the chicken is like, huh, or avocado, or cherries, or whatever you eat, that they're not quaking in their shoes trying not to get eaten. They actually are becoming a part of you. And also, when you eat them and then you are doing something in your life, you are liberating that light. So, whatever, I ate a banana this morning, I'm liberating that light. And part of that is my caloric output, but some of it is also the light that I'm bringing to you. It serves my cognitive awareness, and I share light through this oral tradition with you so that you can now ingest it. Then some of it goes into you too. And it's not just inside of me, it's inside of you guys. And I hope that that's not too like, I hope that your boundaries aren't inflamed, because you're like, well, I don't know if I want that, banana that you just ate inside of me. I'm like, I hope that that's okay. But you're here in my class. And so I think you want that energy to come inside of you. I think it is consensual. So I want the photon to eat me. How do you get to be on the path of light? You get eaten by the photon. And this is like kind of what I'll bring things into a culmination with. When the photon hits you, or you're standing in the path of light and this bullet train of infinity is coming directly towards you, there are pretty much three things that can happen. One is you just stand there like a lump. Did they ever call you like a bump on a log? Stand there like a bump on a log doing nothing. You can just stand there. You're like, duh, I'm slow and I don't contain a lot of intelligence, and I'm just standing here. And that's a possibility. If that happens, sometimes the photon or the light is like, you're clearly slow. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick you up the way a fireman picks someone up. Kind of just get you over my shoulder. I'm the photon. And I'm just going to zoom, 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 zoom. Just going to bring you forward through time. Another option is the photon hits you and you're not slow. And you start to speed up. You're like, something, this light just came inside of me and it's kind of making me go faster. I'm seeing this light almost like it's like a runner, and it's kind of like coming, it's running. And instead of just hitting into me and picking me up, I'm like, let's run next to each other. And then all of a sudden you're starting to get faster. You're starting to get to be on the path of light. And then the final thing that can happen is a total integration between yourself and the light. And in that stage, you accelerate to light speed and beyond. You are eaten by the photon. You become a part of the entire journey of existence of that photon, which contains the totality of all photon everywhere. As the chicken becomes a part of my life through me eating it, and then becomes a part of my journey going all the way back to the moment of flying rainbow lasagna. When the photon eats me, I become a part of that photon's life and its implied journey, going all the way back to the beginning of time and the invention of light. And that's what it is to be on the path of light. You want to be eaten by the photon, and the photon is there, like ready to eat you. Okay. So Kim Rose says, I wake up with songs in my head, body, even if I have not heard them in a long time. I get it. And goes on to say, but it gets stuck immediately when I hear a song in a grocery store. Can you explain what is this phenomenon? I don't listen to music for this reason. It feels invasive. I totally understand. So this is like a little bit of stuff that's definitely not the path of light, it's the path of doo-doos. There's a lot of entrainment signals that are placed into modern pop music. And I definitely hear it when I'm at the grocery store too. Sometimes it's also a little bit too loud for me and have really sensitive hearing. But no, they intentionally put, it's not binaural beats, but it's brain entrainment signals that are meant to be an allergen, get a song stuck in your head, inflame you, irritate you, get your attention, because you're kind of like, what is that thing that is annoying me so much? And then stick with you. Like, this is the essence of what commercial jingles are and other things like that. And I won't get it started in your mind, but I'm sure that each one of you has commercials stuck in your head. This is spam. It's not good. Or maybe stuff from Sesame Street when you were a tiny child, or other things. And also, I can't help it sometimes too, because I've been exposed to pop culture here. So like every time when I'm talking in class and I'm talking about, the topic of like love or something like that, and I said the rhetorical question, what is love? Everybody, you want to sing that pop song, baby, don't hurt me. What is love? I know, and I can sing the whole thing, believe me, but let's not get going. So the answer is, these are brain entrainment devices that are not necessarily good and positive, and that the pop world uses these mechanics intentionally to insert things into your mind that are not something that you want to be there. You will gain mastery over your mind, and you will learn to de-spam your own email system, get rid of any of those files. I want you to know, like, I'm pretty good with my mind. But still, if you ask me the rhetorical question, what is love? I can't help it. My brain wants to sing that song. So this is just like, quiet brain, don't do it. Don't even get started with that. So yeah, you learn to control yourself. But hopefully you can fill your mind with positive music. And that is what I do. It's why I write my music, and I mostly listen to my music, although I am a insouciant musical ingester, and I ingest all sorts of things because my ears get tired too. Sometimes, even though I've written hundreds of songs, I've heard them all, and I'm like, I'm bored, I want something new, and then I listen to new stuff. And then sometimes it's pop music, and sometimes that goes in my mind too. So it is a challenge. You want to be in charge of your own digestive tract. You want to be in charge of your own mind so that these things don't get stuck. Like, you don't want to get brain constipation. You want to make sure you can get stuff out if you don't want it to be in there, or de-spam your hard drive. Pedro says, hi, I've been seeing the black spots on the sun. Is he trying to tell us something? Is it part of the coming ascension? Is it a cleaning of the technosphere so its light reaches us without impediments? Is it something else? What beautiful questions. I'm excited that you're able to see the actual coronal holes that are going on. I will tell you, I can feel them. So I haven't seen them with my physical eyes, but this past Saturday and Sunday, so today is June 4th of 2025, we had some amazing, beautiful coronal mass ejections, and I felt them. And what it felt like, so it's different every time. The sun has behavior. This is how you have to understand. Like, the sun is a giant ball of consciousness. It's not a perfect omniscient being. It has behavior. Like you're a musician. Like, some days you're on, some days you're off. All right. You can hit a wrong note also. The sun over the past Saturday and Sunday was really playing beautifully. Beautiful music. Those songs, or that solar energy that came through, was positive, transformative, and nourishing. And I made the most of what I could with those 2 days. I spent a lot of time in fighting against evil, personal meditations, and trying to align with optimum timelines for myself and for my community, and for my dog as well. And my dog had a beautiful healing. She had like a small growth on her eyelashes, and that reduced by 90%. And then the last 10% fell off yesterday. So the information that came from the sun over Saturday and Sunday, it's basically like this. Like, sometimes people on online forums, like, oh, I'm getting ascension flu. Like, oh, I'm feeling so tired. This solar energy is flowing through. I feel so this, I feel so that. Like, it really depends on what you do with it and where you are in your life. Like, if that energy comes through, it can make you feel de-energized if you're totally at an angle You know what I mean? If you're not optimizing, but if you get an alignment, that energy comes through you and you're like, vroom, 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 I'm ready to go. So that is what I did with it. I'm not at an angle. I am optimized with the sun. I feel the energy coming through. I felt it. And I'm like, I'm ready to go. Vroom, vroom, vroom. Go in a positive direction. And go in a positive direction can mean sometimes clear out your own emotional baggage, clear out and release other people's emotional baggage, move towards optimum situations and circumstances. Sometimes some conflict or confrontation might have to happen because sometimes there are emotional blockages that happen as the result of things that technically don't exist. Those negative emotions that happen from interacting with aberrances, aberrant people, and aberrant situations. So frustrations can happen because you're like, I want to go in a positive direction. Darn it, go in a positive direction. You know, like it's not very positive, but sometimes it's like that because you're punching through membranes. Like, I'm being positive. I'm being positive. You're being positive, but it feels like, you know, you're punching something. Sometimes you have to do that. You have to go forcefully at times in order to break through. So I really am hoping, I love what you say here. Is it part of cleaning the technosphere so that light reaches us without impediments? I most certainly deeply hope so. As I try to work with things that are within my levels of direct capability, I'm always working for the collective and envisioning that as the end result of what I want. So I want to go into optimum timelines for myself, but like I don't want to just go onto an optimum timeline where it's like, hooray, I have ice cream and AI runs everything. No, that would not be optimum timeline. So I want ice cream and I want to make sure that we live in a world where the technosphere is cleared. So it is my deep desire that that is what that energy can be used for. And I think that we have to claim it. I think that when raw energy and light of awareness comes into our world, it can be transformative for us. It causes cognitive changes, but the cognitive changes must be evidenced in behavior. Because what good does it do if I'm like, oh, I just learned the entirety of the everything of everythingness. Oh, well, back to my old non-positive behavioral habits. I'll keep doing the same everything's like, no, that is insanity. You cannot keep doing the same behavioral patterns. You must create and generate new behavioral patterns. So that's what it really is about. New timelines, possibilities, and probabilities flow to our world from the sun through these coronal mass ejections. Got to do new stuff. You got to think new stuff. Hopefully you will feel empowered in new ways, and then you got to do new stuff in order to bring forward these new opportunities. Joyce, thank you for being here and always for being such a committed student. Says, enlightening class, professor. Thank you. Much love and gratitude. I quit smoking cigarettes, a 40+ year habit. I am so pleased for you. I think that is absolutely amazing. Good job. Totally. And that's a major behavioral change, energetic, emotional change on every level. When I first came here as Aurora, here's just a brief Aurora story. I smoked tobacco because I was like in New Jersey working at these entry-level positions, and it was what everyone around me did. They all drank giant cups of coffee and they all smoked tobacco all day long. And it was like a framer shop, like frame, 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 go outside, have a break, smoke, 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 go outside, frame, 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 go outside, smoke, smoke, smoke. And this is like the daily rhythm. And then I had to learn, like, no, like this is not something you should do with your body at all. So I had to learn, but then I had to learn how difficult it was to change, because it's addictive and your body wants to keep doing it. And so I had to learn. So I have a huge amount of respect and compassion, celebration that you're able to stop smoking. Good for you. And yes, it will really, really help you as more light flows into the system, because what the tobacco does is it closes down the heart and it closes down the digestion. People use it in order to bypass food. People use it when they're very, very poor in order to not feel hungry. And I knew people who were like at that level of poverty, and they smoked so that way because they couldn't afford food, they would be like, no, they will just smoke tobacco and have to eat less. But of course, there's also like other people, if for other reasons, people would want to eat less for whatever purposes. But when you are no longer smoking tobacco, it means that you actually can ingest light through your digestive tract more effectively. And also the light can actually move around your body through your heart more effectively, and you have more access to your emotional energy. But it also means that when people are in difficult positions and they used to smoke tobacco in order to feel the difficulties less, now you're going to feel the difficulties more. And so that was what I comprehended, that everyone that I knew that was in these not so great jobs was smoke, 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 because they were in difficult positions. And then if you stop smoking, then you're like, I'm in a very difficult position here. So coping mechanism, but hopefully through not ingesting that anymore, you get empowerment. Then you can make things better in your life and not just merely cope. So that is what I would wish for you. But you're doing great things for your health. So I'm very, very pleased for you, and keep going in wonderful directions. Pedro says, are emotions a type of energy light? Absolutely. And mostly we experience emotions like as a feeling state, but emotions can also be recognized as a biochemistry, like a biochemical signature, and also as a frequency. So there is like a frequency of affection or a frequency of anger. And there's also a molecule of affection. I think it's oxytocin, and a molecule of anger. Like these are things that you can have. And then if you wanted to make an injection of anger, and you can make injectable anger and inject it in something. But like, this is mad science. I would never want anyone to actually do this. And I really despise the types of scientists that do that. But yes, on a esoteric level, emotions are absolutely light. And there's something that they're a form of emotional intelligence. Okay, so wait, I'll talk about this a little bit because I haven't spoken about emotional intelligence. Light that is emotions. So what is emotional intelligence? We're mammals, and emotional intelligence is an animalistic level of intelligence. It is something that is not shared through words, but it is shared through your body. So that can be through touching, and that can also be through gestures, and that can also be through body posture. And this is a lot of how I communicate with my dog. I should have said like this: class, does anybody have a dog or a cat? Then you are already sharing light that is emotional light with your dog or your cat through probably things that you take for granted as an ordinary way of being. Like, for example, when I need to go someplace with my dog, like sometimes we get to this place in the sidewalk and like she wants to go over here, but I want to go over here. So she turns in this direction because she wants to go in that direction. But I turn my body in this direction. I'm like, no, I want us to go in this direction. And then usually bribes are involved. There are negotiations. Usually bribes are involved. And then eventually she will see it my way. But all of that is emotional light. And also, I mean, my dog is really special, but all dogs and all cats do this. If you're not having a good day and they come over to you and they get on your lap, or they snuggle next to you, and they're like, here, I will make you feel better. They are literally giving you emotional energy because they're emotionally perceptive, because they can feel your light, because they can feel what's going on inside of you. Sometimes they can even smell your biochemistry and your pheromones. They can tell what's going on with your health, and they come over and they give you energy. And this is like totally, none of this is really recognized in science, but this is objective five senses materialist science, but this is innate to your being. Like, that light is a emotional intelligence, emotional communication, tactile communication. I didn't speak about that enough in terms of the transferring of light energy in our world, but it's nonverbal. And of course, I didn't talk about it enough in terms of like human infants, preverbal infants, because of course I'm not a mom, but anybody who's parent, you know this about your kid. Like, your kid's not feeling that good, or you're not feeling that good, and you snuggle up together, and how you make each other feel. That's definitely a form of light in itself. Brenda says, really so thrilled that I joined this class, Professor. So amazing and uplifting. I'm really pleased to hear that. Thank you. With huge love for the light received throughout these 4 weeks. Great joy. Thank you so much, Brenda. I'm so pleased to hear that. Good job doing your heavy lifting. I hope that your mental muscles aren't too sore, and I'm very, very pleased for you to be here. Thank you. And Michael says, thank you, Master Aurora. You're such a great mirror reflection of light embodiment. And yes, let's do it together, strength in numbers. You're very welcome. And thank you, as always, Michelangelo, for the beautiful recognition that you sent to me. I love it when you say that. Thank you. Mary Ellen says, thank you. Kimber says, many thanks for your dedication to us. You are very welcome. I would like for you to know that this is totally like my cosmic job joy. And I love sharing light with people. This is my job. And I love to share light, like by making sculptures or making paintings or making music. But I really love sharing light by getting these types of ideas and concepts from the grocery store, and then finding some way to be able to prepare it and make it palatable and accessible to you, just like coconuts. Like coconuts are these things that are just impossible to open. But if you can do it, if you have a machete, the inside is amazing. And then you can do that. So it's like, imagine I have a machete and I just know how to open up the coconuts. I can be like, guys, look, there is something really tasty and amazing inside of here. You've got to have this. It's totally my cosmic job joy. I love doing it. And I'm so pleased and gratified. I always say this, and I always mean it. There's one more question. I'll get to it. But I want to stay in the flow. You are the best people on earth. You are the best humans, probably the best English speakers. I'm sure that there are some really wonderful people who just probably do not speak English. And so that is why they might not know to be a part of this class. But just want you guys to know, very lucky that I have connected with you. I'm glad that you found my work. I think that you are the best of the best. It's my total pleasure and my joy to be able to share all of these ideas, these concepts, and to uplift you and to know that I'm having a good impact on each one of you. And I want to thank you very much because I know that these concepts are challenging and that I'm a tough coach and I'm asking you to do a lot of heavy lifting. And yeah, your brains are really getting in shape. And I love and respect how committed and dedicated you are as students to be able to listen to what I have to share. So thank you very, very much. You're a wonderful class. And it's my total joy to be Professor Air Quotes Aurora for all of you. And the final comment here, Michael says, P.S. You can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish. Ario, we are the self-turning piano, A, B, C, D, E, F, G on the piano, 7 chakras in the body. You are correct. You can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish. Joyce says, you're a beautiful being, Aurora. Thank you. Love to Cheeky. You're very, very welcome. In fact, Anne says, thank you. You're very welcome. I'm so pleased for that. So, okay, guys, just like at the end of school now, take your pencils and your books and throw them in the air. Run outside. You run. Go wild. You all, everybody, you just did heavy lifting for your brain. You need to run around. You need to be free. You need to be in your body. Internalize all that I've taught you about the path of life, but also be super joyous. Be in the miraculous moment of your body. Be aware of all these miracles. And now next week, class called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans will resume and will begin at the beginning. So anyone who is a relative newcomer, welcome, welcome, welcome. The curriculum that I usually teach on Wednesdays is different than this curriculum. And I'm happy to make sure that you have the whiteboards for that as well. I would love for people to be able to have access to everything that I share, not just the lectures, because if you watch the recorded whiteboards, you'll see how much like I stumble over things in the moment, but I'm very good in the recordings. So sometimes I'm also a bit whatever, self-critical, always hoping to be more articulate. But yes, no, I do very well in all of the recorded whiteboards. It's really worth it to go into those materials. So if you're new, please make sure that you're formally enrolled. And how about I include the enrollment link for next week's class. And if you're already a student of Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, you don't have to do anything, because the truth is I have everybody on the student email list, and I will simply keep you on the student email list unless if you ever find my emails burdensome, you can simply write back to me and simply say, take me off your list. I have no problem with that whatsoever. So that's it. I look forward to restarting the semester next week, and we're always going to learn new things, even though we'll go over things that we already know. Wonderful. Kim Rose says, I want to enroll. I love it. Pedro always says, love the light, appreciate it very much. And CC Allen says, much love and appreciation. You're so very welcome. Okay, I mean it, guys. Now you get to just enjoy, run around, go roll around on some grass, go roll around on some ascended masters masquerading as grass. Okay, that's how we'll end. Thank you so much, everyone.